So the talk I just gave discussed the persistence of an Islam state, what I call an Islam state, by which I mean the complex of services and infrastructure that exist in mostly Sunni countries, but in particular in North Africa and Turkey. So I discussed the persistence of the Islam state and the surprising use by the newly elected Islamist parties of the Islam state in furtherance of the state's role in the religious life of their citizens. Now this is an interesting development in part because the same Islamist parties were of course largely the victims of that Islam state during their decades in opposition. And so one could expect that when they came to power, they would actually try to slowly unwind or devolve this power that the state has accumulated over the last 50 or 60 years. Now, what are those powers? Well, they include religious education, of course, but they also include the training and staffing of imams for mosques, the appointment of theologians in ulama councils. So I'm interested in the persistence of these state institutions in the context of liberalizing societies. And I try to explain this evolution with reference to the experience that these countries in North Africa and Turkey in particular had in Western Europe as sending states for diaspora migrant populations from France, Germany to Italy, UK, Netherlands, Belgium, Spain, etc. All these countries had an important role in the diaspora's religious lives. Religious life basically between the 1970s and 1980s and the early 2000s. European governments had decided to essentially outsource the governance of Islam as a religion to these sending states. But over time, that bargain proved to be unhealthy for integration. It also failed to take into account the development of a huge non-governmental field of organizations, including a lot of political Islam federations in basically every country. So I argue that the experience of this European consultation in individual European states, which produced in some cases councils, Islamic councils, representative bodies that were designed to essentially take care of the organization of the infrastructure of the religion in Europe for the diaspora. I argue that the experience of competing for and serving in these Islam councils has had interesting effects on the state-Islam relationship at home. The Muslim diaspora, which really can be considered a Turkish diaspora, Moroccan diaspora, Algerian diaspora, and so on and so forth, continue to play a very important role in their home countries' political and religious lives. To a certain extent, they are able to organize themselves politically and religiously much more freely in European countries still than they can at home. And of course, they are the source of billions of dollars in remittances for these home countries. So as a potential threat to the regime's stability at home, as a potential resource for the regime's GDP and foreign direct investment, etc., as potential voters in elections, they have continued to be courted by the homeland government. This has, in interaction with individual European states' development of Islam councils, produced some interesting results. In particular, my current book project is exploring how exactly this relationship developed, how the experience of being forced to compromise and to negotiate not only with European states but also with dissident counterparts in European societies has encouraged a kind of professionalization but also a pluralism that is beginning to feed back into the countries of origin. So this brings me back to the initial point about where the Islam State, where this complex of institutions and really tens of thousands of mosques, hundreds of thousands of employees, many hundreds of schools, many dozens of theology departments, all of which are paid for by the taxpayers of these various states. What direction they will go in the post-Turkish Spring or the post-Arab Spring era. And I just want to note that I date the Turkish Spring to the election of the Prime Minister Erdogan to about a decade ago. And the Arab Spring we date to the winter of 2011. And so the steps that these countries now take with regard to how they organize the religion, and in particular to what extent the religion is disestablished in the coming political order, is for me an open question, and so I'm exploring how that's evolving as a function of the development of minority Islam in